interestingly enough, when surveys have been conducted, and the last one I think was done in around about 2010, grammar schools were 70% of the population. The polling that's done, 70% were in favour of having grammar schools, and that's remained pretty consistent actually across the nation. I don't believe it is illegal. There is a legal loophole here because what we have is a government that has said we're not going to open new grammar schools. Excuse me. So technically these schools are part of the original school and they've just opened another branch.
10 miles away.
Yes, I mean it is a technical what I admit is a technical loophole. I accept that. Although the principle of having grammar schools, I agree with. I would prefer it to be done another way. If I'm honest with you, I think it would be better if we saw grammar schools that put in poorer areas, and there was an even spread across the country, so that the old conservative policy, which was held by every leader up until Cameron, was that there should be a grammar school in every town. I was in a situation myself where I was in a relatively poor home from a council house, living with a father who worked for London Transport and a mother who was a cleaner. But my brother and I did go to the grammar school. Now, so it's because what we now have is a system where grammar schools are so localised. There's only 164 of them compared to almost 2,000 comprehensive schools. So with this, it is a localised problem, and I do agree with you in that sense. What has happened is that grammar schools tend to attract people into those areas. The house prices go up. They become domains of middle class.
I'm glad we agree. I'm glad we agree.
Well, I agree
it's a middle class.
But that's also, interestingly enough, and let me challenge you on this,
Do.
that's also true of comprehensive schools. Because actually, if you are wealthy and well off, you can afford to buy yourself a house in a nice leafy suburb where there's a very, very nice comprehensive school which is performing just as well as a grammar school. And that's what parents do. So we have a system at the moment which is based entirely on wealth. It's not based upon ability or any other form of merit. And that's where I would take issue with you.
Well,
comprehensive education is not comprehensive. It's the most unequal form of education.
Let me tell you.
So is the answer
the
more
world.
selection?
In one sense, I would agree with you. The way it's set up. Let's focus on that a little bit. I mean, for instance, if one takes Germany, for instance, which has grammar schools, what do? They send around about 25%, 20% to their grammar school system. And when is the selection made? It's made around about 13 or 14, when by then it's quite clear that children are either going down a really specialised academic route or they're moving to more vocational, technical training. And actually there, it's not first and second class, it's what is appropriate for you. It's the same with our university system here. We have now got a situation where we are sending 50% of people to university, which is completely mad. Let me say that Margaret Thatcher actually regretted her decision to destroy the grammar school system. She was the education minister under Edward Heath and she pushed it through. And it led to a very, very difficult situation where, as you say, many counties abolished their grammar school systems. But what they've replaced it with is something more divisive. More divisive because if you are a wealthy middle class parent, you can afford to send your little boy or girl to a very, very nice leafy comprehensive. What's fair about that? It's totally determined on the house price that you can afford. There are some schools now, actually grammar schools, and this is happening in North London, one of the schools there, and one of the schools in Surrey, are actually moving to lower scores for children with pupil premium. So in fact, children coming from poorer backgrounds are actually given some leeway and can attain a place. But my basic point is that you are advocating a system that is not working. It's just not working, because children who are poor go to bad schools. That's a fact. In many cities around the country, if you happen to live in a very, very difficult area, socially difficult area, you will go to a very poor school. Teachers don't want to work there. There's huge behavioural difficulties, problems where all of the children are coming from the same background. Now, a lot of parents, and if you're a parent, I don't blame parents for doing this, would send their children to, if they can afford it, either private schools or nice comprehensives. We live in a free country, and if people want to buy tuition or buy education for their children, they're perfectly at liberty to do that. Are you suggesting for one moment that we should send the thought police in? And
they
stop
can't always afford
that?
it though, can they? It's another level of discrimination.
Well, people can't always afford to buy a car. That doesn't mean they should have one. I mean, in the end, we live in a society where there isn't complete equality, and it's not possible to have complete equality unless you're advocating taking things away from some people and giving them to others. What we have at the moment in comprehensive systems is less fair. It's less fair because it's totally based upon money and income. And you say about grammar schools, well, there are plenty of people in leafy suburb areas in comprehensives who are also using tutors to improve their children's GCSE results or A-level results. Are you suggesting for one moment that that is illegal or wrong? I don't think that's true. I believe that people have many staging posts in their life. And sometimes, if you don't succeed at one thing, it leads to something else. So I don't think this is the most significant thing. It's one thing in a person's life. And are we suggesting that we should have a pathway for everybody where they succeed at everything? I mean, for instance, you take a doctor's exam and you fail, but you can still be a doctor. No, you can't.